Hi there, everybody, and welcome to another live stream here with me, Martin Twycross. As you know by now, I like to give you practical, down-to-earth teachings on mediumship without the fluff, and I go live once a month with the intent to answer any questions you want to bring to me on mediumship, development, and related topics. So this evening, the way it works every time the same. Is basically you put your questions in the chat box. I'll work through them one at a time, and I work through them sequentially. If you want to get your question answered sooner, you can make a small donation through Super Chat, which is the $ at the bottom of the box. To ask a question, obviously, you do have to be logged into Google or logged into YouTube. Otherwise, it won't recognize you and you'll ask a question and nothing will happen. So it's important to recognize that. If you're watching this on the replay, then special welcome to you too as well. I know not everybody can always join in person. I understand that. I understand some people are in time zones in Australia and the like where this is just not really feasible. I see that. But I time it at this time so we can cover UK, Europe, and also US, Canada as well. So welcome to those already in the room, to Shan, to Patricia, to Omar. Lovely to see you. Hopefully you can all hear me okay, see me okay. We haven't got any technical gremlins in tonight. Let me know if there's any challenges in the chat box. So as I say, it's an opportunity for you to ask any questions you have of me, and I will do my best to work through them. So I do have a couple of questions I want to start off with. In the last live Q&A, I answered a question about should you sit in the power before you work doing mediumship, and the answer is no. And what I said was, it takes you too far away from the active energy you need to do mediumship. So what some mediums do is they attune, but what you've got to do mediumship is get excited, get energized, get active. So the question was asked, well, what exactly do you do to attune to the spirit world before you work? So most people, most mediums, before they work, the attunement is basically to blend our mind with the spirit world, but not looking for an individual, just blend with spirit and set our intent with our guides, our helpers, with the spirit realm for what we want. And when I'm attuning and setting that intent, it's I wish to be used as a channel. I wish to link the two worlds. I wish to bring forward messages of love. I wish to reunite those in the two worlds. I wish to create healing. So really, when you think about it, a lot of that is your own motivation for why you want to do mediumship. So we're bringing that forward, and also bringing forward what we want to happen. If it's a demonstration, I want to bring forward good evidence that demonstrates survival of death. If it's a sitting, I want to help the person in front of me. I want to do whatever I can do to help that sitter with whatever maybe they may have come for, with whatever their need is. So we're setting the intent. That's what it is. And you often see a medium on the platform with their eyes closed. They're either attuning and doing that, or they're already linking and getting evidence as well. But you don't want to sit in the power, because if you sit in the power, you'll go too passive and it's not ideal. Sitting in the power is what we do long-term to build power, not short-term just before you're about to work. So don't make that mistake, otherwise it will take you further away from the spirit world. And the second point is you've got to be active, energized, excited to do mediumship. And attunement won't help you with that. What you do to get active, energized, excited is what you do to get excited with anything. It's the anticipation. You can rub your hands together. You can pace up and down. You've got to get your energy going. You've got to find out what works for you to get your energy going. But whenever I stand up to do mediumship, it's always an active, energized state. People say it's like you're like a hyperactive version of your normal self. And you are. That's the whole point, because you're moving into that energized state. Mediumship is exciting. If you try and do mediumship from a very gentle, passive, healing energy, it won't work. This is one of the biggest problems we see with healers who come to do mediumship, is they bring that very passive, beautiful, healing energy, but that's not what you need. You've got to be active, energized, excited. In the run-up to working, get excited. Listen to music that excites you, whether that's spiritual music, whether that's lively music, whatever it may be. Find something that gets you going. Use your thoughts to get excited about this amazing miracle of working with spirit. So that's that question answered. So I'm going to say welcome to a few more people who've joined as well. So there's Mark, Kim, hello from New Zealand. Well done, Kim. I don't know what time it is in New Zealand, but I expect it's probably very early morning. So you get a gold star for turning up from New Zealand. Welcome to Kathleen from Hamilton, and Tessie, Susan, and Morning Star. Welcome to all of you. Okay, so let me come back to questions. So there was a question asked earlier on, and it seems to have disappeared. So I'm going to answer it anyway because it was already there, and I did see it when I was setting up, but for some reason now it just seems to have gone. So the question asked was, how do you differentiate between multiple communicators in a sitting? Which is quite an interesting question, actually. So when we're doing private sittings for a single person, that person may have lots of people in the spirit world they know, and those people from the spirit world may all come forward during the sitting. Now, if they all come at the same time, you're going to have a heck of a job sorting it out. So the first piece of guidance I give, and I give to everybody, is you ask spirit to work with you, bringing forward one at a time. You don't want a huge 3 or 4 all try to link with your mind at the same time, bringing bits in of this one, bits of this one, bits of this one, and then saying, well, you can probably make it fit all amongst your loved ones. That's not ideal. We want to bring through each one so they can be recognized individually. So the first thing you've got to do is set the intent with spirit. That's the first protocol. A lot of people don't do that. And go looking for one, not for lots. Obviously, if you go looking for lots, you'll probably find lots. So make sure you're looking for and asking them one at a time, please. But of course, spirit won't always follow what you ask them to do all the time. Most of the time they will. But you may have, say, a lady comes for a sit-in, her mum's in spirit, her grandmother's in spirit, mother's mum. Mum and mum's mum come in together, and they're very similar personalities, and you can't feel a difference. Now, if you've got a man and you've got a woman, that's obvious. If you've got a really forceful, dominant personality and a very shy, timid personality, that's usually obvious. But if you've got 2 people who are the same personality, 2 people who are very similar in many different ways, then it becomes harder to sort out. And you may be saying, I've got a lady here, and explain the health. Oh yeah, that's my mum. And then you're explaining a bit more about certain circumstances. Oh, that's my grandmother. And it's like, are these ladies' energies very similar? Oh yeah, they're very similar. In that case, then you've got to separate it out. So if you become aware you've got more than one communicator, your job is to separate it out. We've got to look for what fits with each one. You've got to remember what the recipient is saying to you, what the sitter is saying to you. The sitter's saying to you, this one's mum who's got that and that, so you remember that and that. And this one is grandma on mum's side who's got this and this. So now I'll be saying, okay, I want one of you to work with me. Let's start with mum. So I'm then saying, okay, grandma, you just step back a little bit. Mum, you work with me. So I'm remembering that mum, this piece of evidence fits mum, this piece of evidence fits mum. And I may even just repeat that to strengthen it, to bring her in. And then we work with mum. And then I'll say, thank you, mum. And I'll say, okay, grandmother, your turn now. You can come in now. I will work with you. And that's what a good medium should be able to do. Should be able to separate it out. But it takes experience. In the very early stages of developing and being in circle, that's going to be hard. I get that. It's going to be hard. But we've got to look for the bits that separate them out. And then we've got to be doing the instruction within our mind. It's not vocalized. The sitter doesn't know what's going on, has no idea. None of this is vocalized. This is all taking place within your mind, sending thoughts to the spirit world, sending thoughts to your guides and helpers, and sending thoughts to the communicators. And that's what we're doing. So hopefully that helps answer that question, which, as I say, for some reason, disappeared. So welcome to anybody else who's joined us. To Mark. Okay, let's work through your questions now, all one at a time. So if you like my mediumship clinics, do hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel, and you'll get notification of when I go live as well. If you click all the notifications, then you'll get notifications of all new videos and when I go live. And if you want to support the channel, you can do that you can check out what I offer in my store at my website, martintwycross.com. As I say, if you want to get your question answered next, you can always make a small donation through Super Chat, which is the $ at the bottom of the chat box. And if you make a donation, I will get onto your question next. If you want to donate through PayPal, you can do that. There's a link at the very top of the chat box pinned, and also it comes up along the ticker as well. My PayPal me address. If you want to buy me a coffee through PayPal me, you're more than welcome to do that. But if you like my teachings, do check out what I offer, the courses, classes, study program on my website. Right, let's get into the questions. What have we got? So Shan, how do you know if you've dropped out of the power when doing a reading? It's an interesting question because we see it a lot and we tell people they've dropped out of the power and they go, oh, have I? And what's happened is they've either fallen out of the connection with spirit, moved psychic. And the other problem I have is the word dropping out of the power. What does it mean? What it means is you've no longer got a good connection with spirit. That's really what it means. You've fallen out of the connection with spirit. When we say someone's in the power, it's they're well blended and connected to the spirit world. If they dropped out the power or they're not in the power, they're not well blended, not well connected. So if you're not well connected with spirit, then either it's not working or you move psychic. These are the options. Or you just don't have enough power to sustain the link, which is very common because mediumship takes power, which is fuel for mediumship. If you don't really understand what power is, do check out my Sitting in the Power playlist where I go through why you should sit in the power, how to do it, common issues encountered by beginners and intermediates. And there's also a Sitting in the Power shortened version there as well. Do check out that playlist because if what I'm talking about at the moment does not make sense to you about power, that will hopefully explain it. And I also have Mediumship Class 2, which is What is Power? That helps as well. But basically, you've got to have enough power to work for spirit. If you have no power, you can only work for a limited period of time, and then you're falling out of the power because you ain't got none. The power is a fuel that sustains the connection to the spirit world. If you do not have that fuel, it will just peter out. It's very common that beginners can only work for a limited period of time. And then with experience, it's like we build up that stamina. We work for longer. The more we sit in the power, the longer we end up being able to work. So if you dropped out the power, generally it's not working. If you've dropped out the power, the link is not close. You may not feel a stronger connection with the spirit world. But generally, it won't be working particularly well. That's the key. Or you've gone psychic. You've then started talking all about the person, what's happening in their life, what's going on with their energy, and we're not even talking about spirit. So we've just fallen out of the connection and we've gone in psychically. So that's how you would know. You'd see a change, you'd see a difference. Hopefully that answers your question, I hope. Good. Okay. Patricia, thanks for being here and answering our questions. You're more than welcome. More than welcome. Tessie, any advice for setting up an open circle? As someone who has some experience, but by no means a professional, but want to bring mediumship to others who have interest in my very rural area. This is a huge, I could do, and some stage probably will do, 4 2-hour sessions on running circles. It is a huge, huge topic. The thing is, there's a difference between running a circle and facilitating a circle. We see a lot of circles on Facebook, which are what I call facilitated circles. People set it up to enable people to come together and work, but there's not necessarily a teacher watching everybody work. There's not necessarily a teacher overseeing it. There's not necessarily a teacher looking at what's happening and troubleshooting and giving people advice, guidance, and steering to help them become better mediums. So if you like, the facilitation is just an opportunity to work. But to run a circle, then to run a circle to do mediumship, then really you have to be a medium, a working medium, an experienced medium, a medium who has some understanding of, or a lot of understanding of the mechanics and some understanding of the development process with the student. That's the key, you see. So, if you've got only a little bit of experience of doing mediumship, then it can be hard. It can be hard to run a circle and run it well. And are you running what I would call an awareness circle for absolute beginners? Or are you running a circle focusing on mediumship? If it's focused upon mediumship, what we call a developing circle or a mediumship circle, then as I say, you need to be a medium. You need to be an experienced medium. But if you're just running awareness circles, doing some psychic exercise, playing some meditations, yes, you don't need as much experience. I get that. But people are not going to move as far forwards. So it's a really hard one to answer. There are some books out there on circles and the like, if you want to go Google it. But basically, it's quite hard to tell someone how to run a circle. And it depends upon your area, depends upon the people, depends upon their level. If you've got to have people who are already experienced coming along, then that is harder than beginners. But many circles, in my experience, just start out as, I hate to say it, a mother's meeting. People are just getting together and they're not really moving forwards as well. That's the problem. So again, the more knowledge, skills, ability you've got, the better. And if you are interested in running circles, I highly recommend that you look at things like the training that the SNU offers, the CSNU in teaching, which the union offers, which enables, at the end of it, you get a qualification. It's kind of a church teaching qualification. But obviously, if you're not in the UK, you probably won't have access to something like that. But those kind of things, those kind of teaching programs are worth doing for sure. But it's, as I say, and in terms of exercises, there are huge amounts. The only limitation is the mind of the teacher, what can be covered. So, as I say, it's a huge topic, so forgive me if I don't go into it any more than that. Otherwise, I'd probably be here all night, and the rest of you will be struggling. Okay, next question. Susan, if numerous spirits show up, how do you know which one to blend with? Well, normally as a medium, you don't choose who you're blending with in the spirit world. Normally the guides and helpers who work with you will facilitate people coming forward to work with you. That's the key. So I open to spirit, I ask for one at a time, and then people come forward one at a time to blend with me. I invite them to come forward one at a time to blend with me. So that's the simple thing you do. You set the intent that you want someone to come forward and blend with you. But if you did become aware of a couple, then you've got to choose which one you're going to start with, provided you have time to work with all of them. So it follows on from the first question I was asking about. But generally, spirit know themselves who wants to do the communication. That will all be taken care of spirit side. Very rarely will you ever have to worry about that. I don't choose. If someone come for a sitting, I wouldn't go, okay, who have you got in the spirit world? Let's see. And which one am I going to work with today? No, I'm not working with the one who's come forward. No, they can go. I want someone better than that. No, whoever comes forward is who I work with. Spirit know who wishes to communicate. Just leave it in their capable hands. Okay, next question. Omar, I find that as I developed, I sort of feel like connecting to everyone, even strangers walking down the street. Is this because I'm more connected to source and am becoming a better medium? So I'm not sure what you mean by this in terms of, do you mean you feel you have a greater connection with all people? Or do you feel like you want to make a link for people who you pass on the street or strangers and get links for them from the spirit world? I'm assuming it's going to be the first one, but for some people, they want to do the second one, which is definitely a no-no. We should never, ever link for anybody who hasn't asked you for a reading. Just because you sat next to someone on the bus or you're in a queue at a supermarket, you shouldn't be given a reading to somebody. You shouldn't just ring random people up and start trying to give them readings on the phone. No, we only give it to people who at the time know what they're getting into, want to hear from spirit, etc. So I presume it's the first one. But it doesn't necessarily... So feeling a greater connection to all life, to all people, to everything, and to source doesn't necessarily mean anything about your mediumship, to be honest. It just means that you're developing that aspect, that of self, of spirit, that you are becoming more aware of the energy, more aware of the connection between all things, all life, all people. So that's the important part to bear in mind. But you can't say, well, because that's happening, it makes me a better medium, or I'm a better medium because of it. The two are, if you like, independent. We develop ourselves spiritually, and there is a small degree of crossover to our mediumship, and we develop mediumship. But you can develop mediumship and be a completely unspiritual person. And you can be an incredibly spiritual person and not develop mediumship at all. So the two are totally independent. Although I'd like to hope that those who are developing themselves as mediums would at least take some time to develop themselves spiritually, I would hope. Now, if you are interested in spiritual development, one of my courses, there are 8 courses at the moment that are out there. They have been run, but they are pre-recorded courses, so you buy the recordings of them. You get all the course materials, you get the meditations if there are meditations associated with them. The spiritual self-development course is all about spiritualizing the self and working on your own spirit, your own soul. And I highly recommend that. And for me, in the past, the great mediums of the past focused upon spiritual development first before people want to become mediums, because they recognized that we don't want people who are mediums, who are not spiritual, who are not nice people, who are not expressing qualities of the spirit, who may be doing it for the wrong reasons, for fame, for fortune, for praise, but not the right reasons. So spiritual self-development, I highly recommend that course as a very good course. And also it will make you a better human being if you're able to put what I teach in that course into practice. Within that course, there are a number of questions. And I have the questions on my wall here, soul-searching questions. And I will regularly just tune into those questions to help me with my daily life, with big issues in life. For me, they're just so powerful. If you want to know what they are, you have to check out the course, I'm afraid. But I highly recommend that. So sorry I can't say that it's a sign your mediumship's improving. I just don't know that, to be honest. Okay, next question. Where have we got to? Kim, once you're already doing mediumship, can channeling be part of this during a reading on platform? Now, the problem we have in the UK is channeling is not a word we use at all, I would argue. So I don't know what you mean by channeling. So I'm hoping you're going to type in the chat box in just a second and explain to me what you mean. And do you mean to, in the UK, we sometimes say channeling is like inspirational speaking, your guides bringing forward inspirational speaking, and it's kind of like a light version of what we call trance mediumship. Trance mediumship is where you allow spirit to blend with you, to blend with the body, the mind, the soul, and to form a degree of control with your consent and cooperation, but to speak through you. That's kind of the channeling that we have in the UK, but we call it trance or inspirational speaking. And you obviously have channelers in the States who do that as well. Yeah, I've seen them on YouTube and the like. Some are great and others are not so great. And so is that what you're meaning, where you're channeling your guide to bring information to them? That's what I'm wondering what you're talking about. So if you can let me know, then trance mediumship. Okay, trance mediumship. Okay. So generally not, no. Generally not, because mediumship, let me get a little diagram that may or may not help, but we'll see. So we've got this diagram here, which some of you who are regulars may have seen. This is your normal waking state in the dotted line. We have the active states, of which mediumship is the most active of states. And then we have passive states, of which trance is the most passive of states. So you cannot do trance and evidential mediumship together because they are completely opposite states. So that's important to recognize. However, inspirational speaking is a passive state. And some people in inspirational speaking can move towards the trance state whilst doing inspirational speaking. That's possible, for sure. My white balance has gone very odd, and I have gone very yellow by showing you that little board, and hopefully it will come good. I'm hoping. Okay, that's just a technical thing. Don't worry about that. But yeah, so when we're doing mediumship, we're energized, active, excited, and it's a highly energized state. When we're doing trance mediumship, it is the most passive. We are seeking to remove us from the equation. When we're doing inspirational speaking, we are surrendering and letting spirit speak through us. You would never do the two at the same time. Whilst you're trying to do mediumship, you try to do that. However, in the UK, in churches, in services, we have an address, what we call a spiritual address, which should be inspirational. So the inspirational is that line there, inspirational speaking. Some people do inspiration, some don't, to varying degrees, but there are some who move it more towards trance and may shut their eyes and spirit may speak through them. I know of a few mediums who do that, and that's possible as well. But if you do that, when you've finished it, you'll need a gap before you can start doing evidential mediumship, because you're so far removed from the state you need to get to. I have done a trance address on the platform in a spiritualist church, and then I've had to do mediumship afterwards, and it was one of the hardest things I've had to do because the states are not really compatible, and you need a good song or a good break before you can move into mediumship to get your energy into the right place. Hope that makes sense. So, during a reading, some people during a reading, they kind of do channeled readings where they're bringing through inspiration from spirit, inspirational words, and we have trance sittings as well. And the quality of those can be extremely variable. I've had trance sittings which have been utter fluff versus other ones where the information's been very good. So again, you get the quality varies as always, especially those kinds of things. So Susan, I can see you made a super chat donation. Thank you very much. That is much appreciated. Let me see if I can find your question. I'm really enjoying your video, so informative. I'm so glad. Let me see. Okay, there's your question. Can you please clarify, when doing a psychic reading, you are not supposed to predict the future? Now, I do have a video on my channel. Can a medium predict the future? So that is on my channel. I highly recommend you check that out. I'm going to give you a potted summary of the kit salient points now. But if you want the full detail, go check out the video, Can a Medium Tell My Future? Now, can a psychic tell your future? I don't believe they can. And I'll tell you why. Because your future is not written. Your future is not guaranteed. Your future is not written in the stars. It's your life is not already structured and written. You have free will, you have choice, you have responsibility. So most of the things that come through psychics, what happens is psychics tune into your energy and they pick up your past, they pick up your present, they pick up where you are, they can pick up potentials within you, and they can extrapolate potentials, but it's not the same as the future. It's important to recognize that. Now, can a medium tell the future? Can spirit get a little glimpse into the future more than we can? I'd argue they can see around the corner just a little bit more than we can. So they may be able to give you more of a glimpse of the direction of travel, but rarely do they do it because it disempowers us. We have personal responsibility. So spirit won't tell us what our future is, but they will tell us our potentials. That's different. I may be doing a sitting, say, person comes to me, young person comes to me, I can see they're very intelligent, I can see that in their past they've got excellent results in school and college, and they're now doing a college degree, and I can see they're passionate about the subject, they love it, and I can say to them, you're going to fly through your degree, you're going to get top class honors, you're going to be brilliant. And they might say, great, thank you, wonderful, I'm going to go away and take it easy and do nothing, just relax. And guess what? They fail. Because what you're seeing is the potentials that if they apply themselves, if they stick in, if they carry on going the way they are, then that, because of their interest, because of their knowledge, their intelligence, etc., all of that, that's there in this moment, plus the history of the past and the likely direction of travel is them doing very well. But you can't say for sure they'll do very well. They may have an accident. That means they cannot do their exams or something may happen. None of us can tell the future. So I never predict the future. And I don't recommend people do that in mediumship. And as a psychic, I don't predict the future neither. If I'm working psychically, I talk about future potentials. I think it's more honest, more fair to describe it and present it as future potentials. Always the person has choice. There are always external factors that can get in the way. And by phrasing it that way, it's more honest, in my opinion. So hopefully that helps, Susan. I hope. Right, let me see. Where did we get to? Morning Star, you said the medium normally feeds on the energy of the one asking questions. No, mediums do not get any energy from sitters at all, generally. As a general rule, you don't get your power to do mediumship from sitters. You get it. You can get it from an audience of people in a room watching a demonstration. But generally, the person working with you does not give you hardly any power. The main source of power is you. You've got to develop your own power. That's what will help you sustain your link to spirit, generally. If you try and rely on a sitter, you'll struggle. If you try and rely on an audience, then when the audience has given you a good amount of power, you're great. And when the audience has got no power because there's nobody there, there's 4 in the audience and they haven't got any power at all, and you're going to struggle. You've got to build your own. That's the thought I would say. And I would never say we feed on the energy of anybody. That sounds like we're vampires. So I don't really like the terminology. But obviously we all have our own understanding. Morningstar, a blocking subject will drop the connection. No, you will drop the connection. However, because what's happening is it's your own confidence that's knocked. So people have said to me, oh, that person blocked me. And I would say, no, you allowed yourself to be blocked. There's a difference. No one can take me out of the connection if I don't want to be taken out of the connection. But as soon as I start doubting self, as soon as I say, okay, I've got a challenging sitter here, they're making it hard for me, but I'm going to plug on through regardless, I can stay with it. But if I say, oh, this person's impossible to work with, I'm out of the connection. Did they block me? No. I chose not to do it. I chose to step away from it. I chose not to work with it. So I always, when people say to me, can an audience block you? No. Yeah, the energy of an audience can be challenging. I get that. Someone in the audience can heckle you. I get that. But nobody can block you. No one can stop us blending with spirit other than ourselves. I've seen mediums saying someone in this room is blocking me, and it's wrong. No, you're doing it. Can sitters block you? No. Sitters are often not open or can be highly skeptical. There's a difference. I wouldn't say that was blocking. There's a difference. It just means they're challenging to work with. They may not accept what you give them. But, I've worked with skeptical sitters who won't even give me an answer, who refuse to tell me I'm right or wrong, and just say to me what you've got to say, and I'll make my own mind up about what I'm hearing. And I'll say, well, give me a yes, no, don't know. And they say, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'll say, okay, I'm just going to work with you, but understand without the feedback, it's harder for me, because if I go wrong, you're not helping me, but I can still work. We can still push and work through it. So hopefully that all makes sense. Okay, next question. Shan, what does going psychic mean? Basically, it means you're working psychically with the sitter's energy, or with a person in the audience, their energy. So when we're working mediumistically, we're forming a link with the spirit world. When we're working psychically, we're forming a link with this person in front of us and reading the person's energy, reading information from them, from their aura, their energy field. When you're working with spirit, you're moving your mind to the spirit world, and you're receiving the information from spirit communicators. So when we say you're going psychic or you're dropping to the psychic, it means you've moved away from spirit and you're going into the energy of the person, and the information you're getting is psychic information. Say I'm working with someone, they're answering me up, and then I start saying, okay, I feel there's a problem with this lady's knee, meaning spirit. And the person's, no, I don't understand that. And I say, well, I get a feeling of there's problems, operations needed. And the person said, oh, well, I've got a problem with my knee and I need an operation. What's happened is you've moved in psychically, or you've taken the information psychically from their voice and you've gone onto the psychic. It's not the spirit communicators thing. It's the person you're working with, the sitter or the recipient, who you're working energetically with them. And, all information when working with spirit comes through the psychic senses. Whether we're working psychically or mediumistically, it all functions the same way. So it's quite easy to do that. The key thing is to place your intent and focus with spirit, to stay with spirit. So there is a video on my channel, which is how do I know if it's from spirit or if it's psychic? I highly recommend you check that out. Probably a good 10 minutes worth of teaching in there. So I haven't really got time to go into all the different things, aspects that are a part of it. But that video will give you a good solid foundation in understanding the difference between whether you're working psychic or mediumistically. And there's also a video on my channel called What is the Difference Between a Psychic and a Medium, which will also help clarify as well. Normally, the day after, what happens with these question and answers is that I can't edit it until the day after. It doesn't allow me to. So I normally, the day after, will insert all the questions that come up in all the videos I reference. I will add them in. So that if you come back a day after this class, you should find in the comment and the description all the videos on my channel that I've referenced. So we'll talk. So far we've obviously got all the Sitting in the Power series of What is Power, and now we've got the Can a Medium Tell the Future? We've got the Psychic and Medium difference, and we've got How Do You Know from Spirit Psychic. So they'll all just get dropped in. That's how it works. Okay. Morning Star. Ouija board is the best door opening device. Starting out in medium work, the Ouija board opens things up very quickly. I would disagree entirely. I would never recommend anybody work with a Ouija board, I'm afraid. Only with highly experienced mediums. When you work with a Ouija board, you're open to all sorts of different things. You've got to be very, very careful. It's about setting the right intent. A Ouija board will not open you up. There's no logical reason to that at all. What will open you up is development and the usual accepted steps of development. So I'm afraid I cannot go along with that. I'm afraid I have to call that out. And have I worked with a Ouija board? Yes. But are there issues and problems that arise with Ouija boards? Absolutely. I know many people who've worked with Ouija boards and had very scary, frightening experiences. And the problem is a lot of people treat a Ouija board as a game, and it's not a game. And whatever energy you bring to a Ouija board is what you attract. So if you bring humor, fun, laughter, joking, having a laugh to it, don't be surprised if spirit bring the same and want to have a laugh with you. If you're drunk and you get a Ouija board out and you say, let's have a bit of a laugh, do not be surprised if you attract people from the spirit world who are coming on not the highest of vibration and want to have a bit of a laugh with you. So only ever work from the highest, but Ouija boards are incredibly slow. You having to wait for the glass or the marker to move around the board, and it takes ages to do it. It's slow, and it's not ideal. It's not easy. You've got to do it with people. The best thing to do if you want to do mediumship is go to a class, go to a circle, and you have to work with other people. You need to have a sitter who can recognize the information you're given, and generally start an awareness circle. So I do not recommend the Ouija board unless you're highly experienced and you know what you're doing. Okay. Judith, how do you know it's time to move forward with a new teacher? How do you know it's time to move forward with a new teacher? It's a good question. You know, in our development, we will outgrow teachers. And in my own development, I had a number of teachers in the early stages, some of whom were beneficial and some of whom were not. When people's teachings clash and one person's telling you one thing and one's telling you something else, I would go with the one that resonates with you, that makes sense to you. If my teachings today resonate with you, if my teachings today seem right to you, then go with it. If they don't, let them go. If my understanding of the world is a good fit for yours, and what I say seems normal, sensible, logical, great. If it's not, I'm not the right teacher for you. So we have to look at that aspect of it. Second aspect, we have to look at, are we progressing with that teacher, or have we gone as far as that teacher can take us? Sometimes you find the teacher, I remember one teacher whose circle I went in, they did the same thing every single circle, which is kind of odd. So basically, if someone's doing the same thing in every single circle, then you've got to question how you're going to learn from that. And what I found was other teachers' circles, I was learning lots and moving forwards, and I just getting bored. So if you're getting bored or you don't feel you're moving, things are not happening the way you would like, then yeah, that's another sign. You can tune into your soul. How does your soul feel about it? You can tune into your intuition. How does it feel? But basically, the problem with very inexperienced people is they don't know what's good, what's bad, what's not. If you do not know what a good medium teacher is versus a bad medium teacher, then how do you know if the teaching is any good? You don't. All you have to do is go try different things and see what seems to be a good fit, see what seems to work, see what seems to be resonating with you. I always say seek out the highest quality teachings you get. And, you know, I'm from the UK. I'm trained in the Arthur Findlay College, and I teach in a similar way to all of the AFC tutors because that's my background, and I'm also an approved Arthur Findlay College tutor. So in the UK, we don't do a lot of fluff, as you've probably gathered. And some of us do less fluff than others. I've got a very scientific, analytical mind. I don't like to go into the fluff side of it much at all. So you kind of got to look for someone who you resonate with, who's teaching, and also look to see, are they progressing people? Are people moving up and moving along who do their courses and classes? Because if they're not, that's another sign. I talked about at the beginning that a lot of circles are just mothers' meetings. They're just mothers' meetings. And, you know, if something is not progressing anybody, that's not good. Yes, it might be a lovely social get-together. It might be lovely to connect with each other. And it may serve a purpose in that it helps people get out of the house, have a connection. And yeah, I'm not knocking that. But if you're talking about development, it's different. So yeah, it's an interesting question. But you'll start to have an inkling that something does not feel right. That's the thing. You'll start to have an inkling that something does not feel right. So I hope that helps answer it for you. Okay, Debbie, do you think we are guided by spirit to develop and to attend spiritualist church? I wouldn't say we are guided by spirit. I say we are, something within us draws us to it. Spirit can't make me go and do anything I don't want to do. It's not going to happen. Spirit can't send me off to do something. They can't send me to the local spiritualist church. But I may have an interest in this local spiritualist church. I may have an interest in what's going on and want to go and check it out. Now that's different. There's something coming from within me, from my soul, from the spiritual aspect of self. That's connected with the whole of life, connected with the divine, connected with the spirit world also. But generally it's coming from within. And, you know, there's no point you developing if you're not interested in it. There's no point you generally, all of us have got a finite amount of time in our lives. We can only put our time and effort into what matters to us, what is interesting to us. If you don't really want to develop, you won't. You'll find you probably won't go to classes. You won't go to do what you need to do to develop, because why should you? It doesn't interest you. It's not exciting for you. It's not something you feel drawn to or pull towards. But the spirit pulls towards it? No. I believe it's part of us, part of self, part of our soul, part of our spirit that's guiding us to it. You know, we all have qualities within us to be expressed in this earthly life. And when there are routes to express them, synchronicity can come into play and things can draw us towards them. Yeah, I was drawn towards going to a spiritualist church for years before I ever went in one. And it was only the loss of my mother, that loss of a loved one, that bereavement, that sent me there quicker, because it crystallized things that I had to hear to find out, is there an afterlife? I had to find out, was she okay? That was the incentive. Whereas the interest, spiritualism, that looks kind of intriguing. I wonder what that's about. But it was never really enough to drive me along to spiritualism. And obviously in certain areas of the world, you don't have spiritualist churches neither. So I get that, I see that. Okay, next question. Kim, I've watched your videos, love them. Now my mediumship is changing. More open evidence comes through. That's good. Great. That's what we want. And remember that your mediumship is always changing. It never stays static. You know, as one of my videos on my channel, 7 reasons why it feels like your mediumship's getting worse, but it's not getting worse. It's changing. And if you don't learn to adapt and go with the changes, you'll struggle. You'll either stagnate or go backwards, but it's not getting, you never lose what you've developed. You never get worse. That's important to recognize. However, if you don't adapt to change, you will get worse. That's different, because you're not losing things, but you're not learning to be adaptable. That's the key thing to recognize. But yeah, it's good. And with evidence, I do have a course, Getting Better Evidence, 4 2.5-hour classes in that course. And that one, I drill deep into all the different types of evidence, how we get them, how we can get them. You know, if you want to work with age, there's all the different ways in which you could work with age, and how you receive them if you're mainly clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient, claircognizant. You know, we can work with all of that. I give frameworks for getting better evidence. And ultimately, with getting better evidence, we want to move away from any checklists. In the early stages, checklists are great. In the early stages, who are you? What's the relationship? How old are you? How did you pass? Wonderful. It will help set you up. But later down the line, I would far rather, I've got a gentleman here who's a fireman, and he passes in a fire. That's far better than me saying, I've got, how old are you? How did you, just going through my little checklist. I'd rather just bring what is important in that moment, in that energy. That's what we've got to do. So yeah, so anyone interested in developing their evidence, learning to cope with all of that, I highly recommend the course Getting Better Evidence. But coming back to the questions. Kim, thank you for answering my question. You're very welcome. And Kathleen, thank you for addressing why someone should not be predicting the future. You're very welcome. Very welcome. Yeah, thank you for addressing the question about feeding off people's energies. So much misconception out there. Absolutely. And one thing sometimes that's happened today that I didn't recognize until I was working through a lot of the questions is that somebody was in the room answering everybody's questions themselves badly, and with answers that I would not give. They are now in a timeout because I can't really have other people doing that. Otherwise, you know, people watching this would expect those to be the right answers. They're not. So I would ask you as well, if you are watching, not to try and answer the questions. Just allow me the opportunity to answer, because that is why you've come here. You come here to get my answers, not other people's answers. You come here to get practical, down-to-earth teachings without the fluff. And if the answers bring in so much fluff that I've got to try and address all the answers as well, then we're in trouble. So yeah, so I shall keep a closer eye on that. Kim, it's interesting saying this about blocking. At times that there are people who sit there, nothing, that's what you can get. About sitting like this, just kept going, yeah, you know, but they're not blocking you. That's the important part you've got to recognize is there are sittings where we get nothing, but the person is not blocking you. And for you to blame that person is wrong. One of the favorite videos on my channel actually is called Mediums Who Blame Others. Again, I will put a link later on into the, you can go search for it if you want, Mediums Who Blame Others. And it's all the excuses I've heard mediums give for when their mediumship is not working. And it can be quite offensive. If I go for a sitting and the medium gets nothing, it's actually offensive to me to say I blocked you. It's offensive to an audience to say the audience is stopping me working tonight. You know, it's not the case. Now, mediumship is variable. There are so many factors. In fact, my mediumship class 8 video, I've got a whole series of videos. Just so mediumship classes 1 to 12 and special topics 1 to 12. Mediumship class 8 is managing problems within mediumship. And within that class, I talk about all the different factors that come into play when we're doing mediumship and all the different factors that can cause it to go wrong, of which there are a multitude. And we can be doing a sitting with a person and there are so many factors that can affect it. Factors affecting us, factors affecting the energy, factors with the sitter. We just may not like something within their energy, but it's not anything to do with them. It's to do with us. They may be triggering stuff within our experience. They may look like somebody we don't like. Somebody once said, oh, I can't stand that medium Martin Twycross. He looks like somebody I don't like. It's like, well, okay, it's my fault. I look like somebody you know who you don't like. It doesn't mean I'm that person, but it's a projection, you see. It's a projection. So what I'm trying to say is that, you may do a sitting, you may get nothing, and it's nothing to do with the person. It really isn't. Now, yeah, I get it. If the person's particularly awkward, I give something. Well, I'll need something much better than that. I'll need the name, the first name, the surname. I might need their date of birth, and I will definitely need the magic code word. Yeah, that's going to make a challenge for anyone working. You're going to go, okay. Or if the person's really not in the right place and there's mental health issues, you may decide this is not going to be a good idea. But generally, if it's not working, it's not the person's fault. It's that we are struggling to work. At what point do you give it up as a bad job? I've seen mediums work on platform for half an hour getting nothing working, and then it all finally comes good, and they stay with it for half an hour. It must, if I'm doing a series of sit-ins, if one sit-in doesn't work, move to the next. If I get a link, it doesn't work, not understood, I'll try another one, get not understood. I might then try and work psychically. Yes, psychics all making sense. Move back to spirit, see if we can get it to work. Now, I was once doing a day of readings in a church, and I watched one of the mediums didn't get 2 sit-ins, couldn't get anything. And I remember thinking to myself, God, 2 sit-ins, not getting anything at all. I was thinking, blimey, that's not good. I've never had that happen to me. Foolish, foolish thought. Never had that happen to me. That's a little sign of the ego starting to rise on the shoulder. Oh, that doesn't happen to us. My very next sitting, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I'm like, okay, spirit, I see. There can be a whole bunch of factors. And the guy who I was doing a sit-in for was lovely. He really genuinely wanted spirit. He really wanted to hear from his loved ones, and I couldn't do it. And I was very saddened we couldn't do it for him. But it was nothing to do with him. It was just the way it was. So that's an important thing to recognize. Shan, thank you for clarifying it. You're welcome. Patricia, can you talk about finding a good teacher, what to look for, etc.? Well, the good news is that I'm going to be releasing a video soon on what to look for in a good teacher. In fact, I've got 2, part 1, part 2. So you'll be getting a great deal of detail. But again, first of all, if I want a teacher to teach me mediumship, check out their mediumship. Can they do it? Are they actually even a medium? Now, if it's just an awareness circle, a beginner circle, then, it doesn't matter as much. But if somebody is going to be teaching mediumship, they've got to be a medium. And ideally, you'd like to see them work. You'd like to get an understanding of their work. Or have they got any accreditations? Have they got, for myself, I'm a CSNU medium. I've had my mediumship assessed by the Spiritualist National Union. I've had my public speaking assessed. I'm also an approved tutor of the Arthur Findlay College, where my work's been assessed in great detail, as has my mediumship. And by having that, yes, people know you operate and work to a certain standard. So what is there that or check out other people's feedback about them. Try and find out what other people are saying. Do people recommend? The recommendation is very, very good. But you've got to understand that some people don't understand what necessarily is good mediumship, so they may recommend people who are not so good. It all depends. But I always say anybody from the Arthur Findlay College, will be a good teacher. People who have qualifications like the CSNU in teaching, they should be a good teacher because they've had it assessed, that's been trained to a certain standard. People who are there's obviously a lot of teachers that are relatively well-known. Again, you wouldn't go wrong with most well-known teachers because the reason they're well-known is because they're doing a good job generally. But when it's people who are lesser known, it can be harder. And then just go along, check out their teaching, suck it and see if it resonates with you. And beware of price as well, because some people charge crazy money. I'm not a fan of people charging the earth for their teachings or only selling their teaching to the highest bidder. As you've gathered by now, I'm giving you teaching today for free. If you do want to make a donation or buy me a coffee, you're more than welcome. If you want to check out my products, my courses, my videos, my study program, purchase any of those to support me, that's greatly appreciated as well. But with everything I offer, I try to keep the price reasonable because not everybody can afford really expensive things. And again, it's same with readings. Readings, I believe, should be affordable. Teaching should be affordable for most people. So again, if they're charging some people say, oh, well, if they're charging more, it should make them fabulous, shouldn't it? If I'm going to pay £100 a class, that's way better than paying £20 a class. Not necessarily. It's not 5 times better. In fact, it may be 5 times worse. Who knows? You're only going to find out by sucking it and seeing. But if it's mega expensive, unless you truly have information about that medium, I'd be very careful going for it. So hopefully that helps you. But yeah, so there'll be 2 videos coming out on that later in the year. They're recorded. They need editing, but I will get them out there. So hopefully that will help you. Razwan, what are your thoughts of the deceased coming through in their dreams, essentially mediumistic dreams? So we can have dreams, we can have our loved ones come into our dreams, and it happens, and often it's just our own mind's creation. Often it's just our own mind, generating stuff in dreams like our own minds do. But sometimes you have a dream where you meet your loved ones who are in spirit, and they seem awfully profound, and they stand out, and you wake up and you remember them. They don't just disappear like most dreams do. Most dreams where if you don't write them down, they've gone and you've lost them. But some of these dreams where we meet our loved ones in the spirit world, they have an energy to them. They're quite profound. They have a certain energy. And for me, that can be what I call a dream visitation. You're genuinely meeting your loved ones in your dreams. So I believe it can happen. I believe it happens. I've had those experiences. Other people have had those experiences, but they have a different feel to them. But I equally know that a lot of what I experience with my own loved ones in the dreams is just my own subconscious in the dream state, just creating stuff. And it doesn't have the same feeling. But a mediumistic dream, I would, in a dream, I've never had someone else come through to try and get a message through to somebody else. Wouldn't make a lot of sense, to be honest, because generally you do not remember your dreams unless you're trained to write them down. So, and again, you can never know for sure when giving it to somebody else that is genuine mediumship. So I wouldn't recommend you do that. But definitely you can connect with your own loved ones in dreams. It's possible. And as I say, the dream has a slightly different feel. Hope that makes sense. Kim, brilliant videos to watch. I found them informative and great to understand. Thank you for your vote of confidence. Much appreciated. Kim, I never Ouija board. Too many people have had interesting experiences. Yeah, I know people who've had very, very challenging experiences with them. It's the energy you bring to them. With all spirit work, you must always bring respect, love, compassion, and you've got to do it for the right reasons. You're doing it for the highest and the best. That's what we're seeking to do. It's not a game. None of it is a game. Whatever you bring to your work is what you'll get out of it. If you're doing mediumship for fame, fortune, and recognition, egotistical reasons, yes, you might get your ego massaged, but it will limit how far you can progress. I know some mediums who are just out there for the praise. They love to be praised, but praise is a double-edged sword, because for every person who loves you, there might be someone who doesn't like you. And for every person who says something nice, someone might say something cutting, cruel, and harsh. So before you know where you are, you've got to take the rough with the smooth. So if you want praise, grow a thick skin, I would say, because some of it will be challenging, possibly. Kane, where are we? What is the next question? Sin. I seem only to be able to connect when a spirit wants to out of the blue, but when I try to connect, it's crickets. So the problem is if we put too much pressure on ourselves, it doesn't work. Remember, mediumship works in the altered state. If you're trying to do it from the wrong state of mind, you're going to have problems. I'll guarantee you that. And what you're probably telling me is that when you're relaxed or you're daydreaming or you're just not trying, it happens. But when you're trying to make it happen, it doesn't. Suggests to me you're either trying too hard. It suggests to me as well that you may not be in the right state of mind. To do mediumship, you've got to move into an altered state of awareness. You've got to move away from your logical, rational, sensible mind. You've got to move and shift your energy. And so, we're trying to do lots of different things when we're blending. We're connecting with the aspect of our brain, the right brain, the creative brain. We're not connecting with the logical brain, the normal thinking mind. We're moving away. That's why it's an altered state, always, always. So highly recommend that you learn the mechanics. Now, if you want to know the mechanics, I have a series of videos. Classes 1 through to 6 will give you a good solid foundation in the mechanics. I also have courses. All these courses build upon each other. And the series for mediumship is really meditation and sitting for spirit, followed by fundamentals of mediumship, followed by getting better evidence. In the fundamentals of mediumship, I go through how we connect to spirit. I go through the altered states of minds it uses and how we move ourselves towards those. So you can also get the fundamentals of mediumship course if you want it in it. It's four classes course. The courses are more modern. They were recorded more recently. The videos were recorded a little while back, but the content is similar. Important to recognize the content is similar. I also have a studio program based upon those videos that we talked about. And again, those study program takes you through in great detail with a corresponding tutorial. It takes you through the teachings in a very structured manner and a very deep manner. If you want my deepest teachings, you kind of get it from the study program, supplemented by some of the courses go deeper than the study program. For example, getting better evidence goes deeper, better private readings goes deeper, and better platform mediumship goes deeper. And meditation for sitting for spirit covers meditation in a lot more depth as well. That goes deeper, as does spiritual self-development. But there's quite a lot of them go deeper. But the fundamentals is effectively the same content in a different package. So if you want to know how to do mediumship, you've got your choice between the modules, the study program, or just the classes they're based on, or the courses. I know it's complex. Right. So where was I? So your question, when you try and do it, it's hard, but when you're not trying to do it, it happens. And it's not that spirit want to, it's the state of mind you're in. But again, we need to train ourselves to be disciplined to do it at the time we want to do it. So I always say, go to circles, classes to build that discipline. And there's also one of my videos as well where I talk about discipline. So I can put that one in the list as well. Okay, what's the next question? Susan, do I have any surveillance camera and do you capture any spirits on them? The simple answer is no, I don't have any surveillance cameras. And would I expect them to capture spirits? Not particularly, no. Why should they? It doesn't really make a lot of logical sense to me, I'm afraid. So I have very little interest in ghost hunting as such, I'm afraid. I would far rather make a link with spirit and bring through people's loved ones than to try and chase phenomena. So, and people say, oh, spirit's close, it's cold. No, it's a cold room, or there's a draft coming through the door. And I don't do EVP neither. I've got infrared cameras. We've tried doing things with them for experiments, but the results generally not. I don't do spirit boxes. No, I just don't find the results that people get that I've seen particularly compelling. I prefer to really bring through evidence of loved ones that can touch souls and create profound, dramatic change. That's my passion. That's my love. So things like surveillance cameras is not really my bag, I'm afraid. You capture a lot of them in your home, especially if given a reading that day. There are true spirits, all different shapes, sizes. Yeah, and I'm not knocking anybody's beliefs, views, what they wish to do. It's just not my bag, if I'm honest. And I've got too scientific a mind. I would probably explain all sorts of things away. And again, there's no need for spirit to show themselves on a camera, really, if they're just going to come and blend with us to connect with their loved ones. So again, I question why. I've got too questioning a mind. It's a dangerous thing, isn't it? So if you are enjoying the class this evening, do remember to subscribe to the channel. Do hit the like button. If you're watching on the replay and you're enjoying it, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you Want to support the channel? Then check out what I offer, my courses, classes, videos, audios, study program. Also, if you want to buy me a coffee, you can do that through my PayPal link. There's one pinned to the top of the chat box, and also you can find the PayPal me link in the description and comments. And if you want to get your question answered next or make a donation, you can also do that through Super Chat as well. And these days, there's also Super Thanks on the channel, which is a little thanks heart thing you can click on and make a donation as well. So there's lots of ways in which you can support the channel if you wish. All of them greatly appreciated. And thanks to everyone in the past who's made donations or purchases, much appreciated. Okay, next question. Tessie, I had an experience recently where I was sitting with spirit and was quite randomly told a specific person, friend of a friend, was going to be going home, and a week later they passed peacefully. And again, that's why I'm saying that spirit maybe sometimes can see around the corner. They can see a little bit further than we can. Maybe they can see how far illness has progressed. Maybe they can see wheels in motion. But generally, they don't give us that. And one thing we must never do is tell someone they're going to die. It takes away hope. It's terrible. A lady I knew who was a booking secretary for a church, she was ill with cancer for quite some time. And she told me that many of the mediums who'd come through the church had told her she was going to die. And I was horrified. I was shocked. And I was quite angry about it, because nobody can take away hope from any other human being. You know, if she's having treatment, if you tell her she's going to die, that takes away hope. Also, her desire to want to fight it may be knocked. You know, none of us can do that. Only God knows who's meant to go at what time. That's my firm belief. So we must never, ever predict death. Never, ever predict anything, really. Predict, especially anything negative. I know people say, oh, you're going to have a really bad car accident and be injured. No, don't do it, because the person is then driving really worried. And maybe they create it through the subconscious and through, because they're so paranoid with their driving that they start making errors and slip-ups and they have an accident. It was never going to happen anyway. So, but we have, you know, it just irritates and angers me when I hear people making stupid predictions like that. So no negative predictions at all. No predictions would be preferable as well, hopefully. But yet these things happen, and, you know, sometimes we feel someone's ill, sometimes we feel the person may go. What I always do is whatever I feel, I write it down. If I sense that something might happen, I write it down. And what I've found is that I'm wrong a lot of the time. So I would recommend you do that so you can see for yourself just how often you're wrong, because we have something called cognitive bias. We focus on the ones that are right and we think that we can do it, or we focus upon the ones that are wrong and we think we can't. Whereas if you just collate the evidence and look at it, you go, okay, I'm right as much as I'm wrong. Yeah. Similarly, if you get a feeling about something that's in the news, a news story, again, especially if you're interested in going into psychic detection, it's very important you check that what you're getting is accurate. You check that you are able to have an ability in that area, because otherwise you can hurt people and damage people's lives so much, and never, ever give information unless you're invited to do so. That's what I say as well. It irritates me when I see people posting in social media that, oh, that person's died, I feel it, they've died. No, sorry. Unless the family have contacted you or you've been asked to assist in the case, do not ever put anything like that out there. Anyway, I'll get off my horse and we'll keep going. So Tessie, you weren't going to relay information anyone, it wouldn't be right to do so. What is the reason for receiving it? Or it's just, I said, random. It shook me to know. Yeah, so it could be random. Spirit, as I say, may have that glimpse around the corner. They may have been giving it to you to show you something. Again, but we must always work with the responsibility. So yeah, so hopefully what I've said helps you in some way. But, you know, it may have come from you, not spirit. That's the other thing to recognize. But spirit generally do not tell us when people are going to pass unless it's pretty clear. Spirit, you know, it's very advanced. There's really no surviving it, but that generally becomes clear to a lot of people as well, including the person themselves. Yeah, let me move on to the next question. Susan, How much do you think is a fair rate to charge for a 30-minute reading? It all depends where in the world you are. In the UK, readings are generally cheaper than in the US. And in different parts of the country in the UK, there's different prices. It's generally cheaper up north than it is down south. In London, there's so many factors in the mix. But, what I always say to mediums is, if you want to work out what the going rate in your area is, check out a wide range of mediums. See what the going rate is. See where the average is. And then you've got to decide what you feel comfortable charging. I know excellent tutors, excellent mediums, very renowned mediums who don't charge a very expensive rate. Yet I know other people who charge phenomenal rates and are barely known. And again, some people think that the higher the price of the reading, the better the quality reading, which is not true. So I'm not in the US. I can't say what a US price is. And I'm even loath to try and say what the going rate is in the area I live. Maybe it's currently £50, £60 for a sitting of half an hour, 45 minutes. But again, I've not benchmarked it for a while myself, to be honest. But again, you've got to feel comfortable charging what you charge. And I would also say as well, if you are a working professional medium and someone comes through your door and you feel compelled to give the reading for free, do it. Or if you realize that you sense that this person cannot afford this, I think it's nice to be kind every now and again, nice to be charitable, nice to, show willing in that way. So again, don't make it all about the money. It's about the service we render first and foremost. The money is secondary. Spirit often say that when we work from a place of love, our needs will always be met. But sometimes some people try and charge crazy rates. So I know in certain countries, the rates are phenomenal. Tessie, completely agree. I was never able to afford a reading and feel I couldn't ever make it out of reach to people like me. Absolutely. If you have been through challenging times and you know how hard it is to pull together the money for a reading, that focuses your mind on not pricing yourself out. And some people I know as well, they kind of they work on a charitable basis that every now and again, when it's clear people are struggling or things come up in a reading that show things, you may just say, do you know what? I'll charge you less today. My rate is, say, £50. I feel I'm going to charge you £30 today. We can do that as well. We can adapt if we need to. Best not to charge higher, though. I don't like your energy today, so I'm going to charge you 70, not 50. That wouldn't be fair. No, you can't do that. Madeleine, I've been to the Art of Finley College. I've learned a lot. Very good teachers and lovely place to be. Absolutely. It's a beautiful place. If you've never been there, I recommend you go there. And you can always be assured the quality of the teachers there, because the training for the Art of Finley College that tutors have to go through is a very, very high standard, as you'd expect. So all tutors at the Art of Finley College, you can be guaranteed of getting a good tutor. So it's a good place to go for consistently good teachings. Debbie, I appreciate that you are affordable marketing and do these free teachings. That's good to know. Kathleen, I purchased your teachings during COVID and found them very affordable and very beneficial. I'm glad. B-Tone, I've been practicing mediumship for 6 months now and I'm noticing some great progress. I was wondering what would you consider an intermediate level if you've been practicing for a time? And this is another challenging question, because how do you define beginner, intermediate, advanced? Some people will say, well, if you're a working medium, if you're a professional medium, if you're taking money for your sittings, you're professional, you're advanced. If you're working churches, centres, theatres, on platform, you're advanced. Generally, we'd say someone who's working with their mediumship is advanced. Someone who's a beginner is going to be hit and miss. They're going to not necessarily know how to do things, not be very good at doing things, not necessarily getting consistent results. For me, intermediate is more about the consistency of it. Your mediumship should be working. If someone asks you to get a link, you should generally be able to get a link. If someone asks you to do an exercise, you should generally be able to do those exercises. that's the point. What the results you get will always vary with all exercises. I get that. But if it's an exercise to make a link, to do something, to get evidence types, yeah, I'd expect an intermediate to be able to do that. But the problem is we can't really put time frames on how much development equals intermediate, or how much development equals beginner, how much development equals advanced. I know I myself, I started working platform after 18 months, which is very fast. I made my first link in 2 months, which is very fast. But that's not normal. Some people I know, they're in development for 10 years before they get to a level where they could then think of standing on a platform and doing mediumship. Other people, they may never achieve that level. So again, it's variable. But again, generally, we use the terms beginners, intermediates, advanced for teachings. If I'm teaching people how to do platform mediumship, it's intermediate to advanced. If I'm teaching how to do sittings in a professional manner, it's intermediate to advanced. But if I'm teaching you the fundamentals of mediumship, that's beginner to intermediate level. But again, some people will tell me they're intermediates and you realize they can't link. They don't know what they're doing and they're actually a beginner. But they've been in development a while. They've been doing things, but not necessarily doing it well. So again, we've got all those factors to consider. And it's very hard. And what I see is when people have courses, they kind of have their own definitions as to where to place people. And so one person's intermediate definition may differ from somebody else's. So it's hard. But if the results with your mediumship are relatively consistent, I'd say you're intermediate. If you're able to, whenever you try and get a link, if it generally works for you, yeah, I'd say you're intermediate. If you've started doing open platform where you're working on platforms and in a training development way, if you started doing practice sittings and you're doing full length sittings, then you're definitely intermediate. Absolutely. Well, hopefully that gives you some clues. But so Larry, I know you made a super chat donation. That is greatly appreciated. I don't think I've seen a question from you. Let me know if you have a question, but I do appreciate your donation. Much appreciated. Debbie, can you explain a bit more regarding your chart? You say mediumship is an active state, an altered state, but I see altered state as passive. Can you clarify this? So mediumship is an active state. So what this line here is your normal, that's your normal waking state. Everything away from your normal waking state is an altered state. So mediumship and psychic work is an altered state. All those other states of inspiration, meditation, healing, trance, they are all altered states. So whenever we work with spirit, we're in an altered state. It's important to recognize that. So they're all altered, everything apart from your normal waking state. And of course it's altered because you've moved away from your normal waking state. But with mediumship and to a lesser degree psychic readings, our mind is active. We are doing things. With the passive states, with inspiration, meditation, healing, and trance, your mind is quiet, doing nothing. And we're allowing energy or inspiration to flow through us. So it's passive because you don't interfere. You have no control over the process. You make the connection, you blend, you let it flow. But when we're doing psychic readings, we push our energy out, we're bringing it back and we're talking and giving what we get. When we do mediumship, we're connecting to the spirit world, we're holding our connection, we're getting excited and energized, and we're receiving information, we're relaying that information, we're checking that information, and we're going back and forth with spirit and the recipient. So it's active, it's an active process. We are not just totally passive. But if I was doing trance mediumship and I go quiet, go deep, and let spirit speak through me, I want me out of it. And I don't want to interfere with the process, and I surrender. It's completely passive. So I hope that makes sense so you can see what I'm saying. So mediumship is an active altered state, and the others are all passive altered states. But anything that is not that middle line, your normal waking state, is altered. That's the key point to remember. So I hope that clarifies it for you as best I can. Okay, B-Tone, I was wondering if you've done mediumship readings for close friends, and if not, would you ever do one? Yes, I have. I've done mediumship readings for people I know, but the problem you've got is psychically you know a lot about them. And also from the point of view of hot reading is where you give information you know a lot about them. So you have to be very careful. But what you don't know about generally is their loved ones in spirit. So it's all about if I was doing a reading with someone I know, it's all about the evidential mediumship, bringing them through their loved ones to demonstrate to them that there is an afterlife, to demonstrate to them that their loved ones survive, and to bring any messages their loved ones want to bring through. That's generally it. I wouldn't try and do a psychic reading for a friend, not at all. Is it harder to do readings for people you know? Yes, it is, because you know them, and it brings its own energy, its own pressures, its own... But generally, if one of my friends wanted a reading, I would prefer they go to someone who knows nothing about them, because there's a risk they'll say, but you knew that about me, or you could have heard that about me. Whereas if they go to someone who knows absolutely zero about them, is a complete stranger, they're going to find that more impressive. But I've had people who are non-believers and don't believe it and don't ever want a reading, and then one day they may talk to me quietly in the pub and say, is it real what you do? And you say, yeah. Can you just see if you can get a link for me? Now, generally in a pub, I would never work, generally. But they're asking, they'd like me to, they want to, it may be the only opportunity they're going to get. So provided I wasn't in too unaltered state myself from alcohol, I will give it a try for them. And I have done that, and it's worked well. But we have to be very careful. But generally, I don't recommend you work in a pub. No, not a good idea. Try not to do it in a pub if you can. Don't mix your spirits. But yeah, so you can, but if you can route them to somebody else, it's better. It's preferable. So hopefully that makes sense. Susan, how do I make a donation again? So if you're logged in to a YouTube account or Google account, you may find a dollar button at the bottom of the chat box. That is a super chat box. You can click on that. Or you can use my PayPal me link. If you go to the very top of the chat box, you'll see a pinned comment in yellow. You can click on that and there's a link there. Or the link comes along the bottom of the ticker as well. Or you can just click on the description and first comment of the video, and the link's in there as well. So there's numerous ways of making donations if you would like to donate. And any donations are greatly appreciated. If you want to buy me a coffee, it's much appreciated. Okay, next question. B-Tone, what is the best way to practice trance mediumship when you're alone but want to practice? Now that is a complicated question. I personally do not believe you can practice trance mediumship by yourself. You can go into an altered state and you can do inspirational speaking, but to do trance properly, you need power from sitters generally. So, if you're an experienced trance medium, yes, I could go into trance now here by myself and do trance online. Yeah, I get that. You could do that. But that's because you've learned to develop it and it can work. And to a certain degree, you get some power from the online, but it's minimized. It's less. But it's impossible generally to practice trance by yourself. I recommend if you want to learn to do trance and do it properly, you do it in a trance circle with sitters witnessing it. Because the other problem you've got is in trance is you're moving away from, you're in an altered state of awareness, and often you're not aware of what's been spoken, said, done. So you need sitters who are the witness, sitters who are there listening, sitters who are there interacting. If I can't remember what I'm saying, it doesn't really help me to do trance in that way, unless I set up a recorder, I get a dictaphone out and start talking into the dictaphone. But then for me, that I would classify that generally more as what I call a form of inspirational speaking. We move from inspirational speaking where thoughts come into our mind to inspirational speaking where words are forming within our mind to inspirational speaking where sentences are coming out of our mouth to then it's deepened into the trance state where it's spoken out of you without your mind having any knowledge thereof. So, it's different levels of altered state, from light inspirational speaking, going into what we call more of an overshadowing, where they're speaking through you, before we then move into the trance state. But the trance state generally needs other people. Now, I will at some stage be offering a course on guides and helpers, getting to know your guides and helpers. And really, that's what you're seeking to do with what you're saying here. To do trance mediumship, you're generally channeling, unless you want to do trance healing, which is completely different. For those interested in trance mediumship and trance healing, special topic 2 is spiritual healing, and special topic 8 is trance healing, which takes it to the next level. And we look at trance healing, taking spiritual healing to the deeper levels. I also have videos, topics on guides and helpers, working with spirit inspiration and trance mediumship as well. And they are all part of my study program special module on healing, inspiration, and trance. You can see there, it's guides and helpers, working with spirit inspiration, healing, trance mediumship, and trance healing. All covered in that section. If that interests you, feel free to check out any of those videos or that module of the study program. And I will be offering a course on getting to know your guides and helpers. And we do want to get to know our guides and helpers, and the way we do that is through working with inspiration, whether that's inspirational speaking or inspirational writing. We seek to blend with them, we open to receive their thoughts, we open to receive ideas, and we seek to either vocalize through speaking or write down inspirational writing what we're receiving from spirit. Both are equally valid to build that relationship with your guides and helpers as a precursor to trance. It's not trance, but it's a starting process. When we first start doing trance, a lot of it's our own mind, our own voice, our own, a lot of it's us. But later down the line, we minimize us and it becomes them. That's what we're seeking to achieve. So hopefully that helps to answer that question for you. Madeleine, what is fluff? So when we say medium, bringing you practical down-to-earth teachings on mediumship and development without the fluff, how would we describe fluff? BS would be one way of doing it. Airy-fairy stuff that has no basis in foundation, no basis in reality. It's wacky, it's out there, crazy. That's fluff. Fluff is stuff that is completely irrelevant and not needed. Strip out the fluff and focus on what really matters. You know, the trance one, there's a very, very well-known video on YouTube back in the day. If we go back quite a few years, it had a hell of a lot of views, hundreds of thousands of views. And this video on mediumship development was like a class, and the person said, oh, if you ever do trance mediumship, you must never do it, it will kill you. That's fluff. Why is it fluff? Because if we look at all the trance mediums in history, none of them died, not one. I'm a trance medium. I've done trance hundreds of times. I'm still here. So it's complete and utter BS to say that. It will kill you. It's not dangerous at all. And anyone who thinks it is has got an odd mindset coming from odd experience, or they have a fear of it. Some people have a fear of it, and it's crazy, absolutely crazy. That's what I call fluff. Fluff is crap. Fluff is irrelevance that can be stripped out, that we do not need. That's what I try to keep out of my teachings. Harry Edwards, I loved Harry Edwards, the healer, because one thing Harry Edwards did is he looked at all the healing practices that people did, and certain people were combing the aura and trying to pull gunk out of people's auras and all sorts of weird and wonderful practices. And this is going back in the 1940s and 50s. And Harry Edwards looked at all these practices, and he looked at what he decided was adding no value whatsoever and threw it all away and focused it down to what truly, truly mattered with healing. And I love that approach. And that's what I hope I bring with mediumship. I try and strip away all the extraneous stuff that doesn't really help you. People say, oh, to develop mediumship, meditate on the third eye. Well, I'm not saying that would not do it, but for 90% of people, 95%, 99% of people, you don't need to do that. I've never meditated on the third eye, nor have I ever taught anyone to do that. I'm a medium. I know thousands of mediums who develop mediumship without meditating on the third eye. And everybody I've trained to be a medium never meditated on the third eye. And I've trained many people to become mediums. So why would meditating on the third eye be the right advice to give somebody? when huge body of evidence shows it's irrelevant, absolutely irrelevant to it. Yeah, it's a technique and tool you can try. I'm not knocking it. But what I'm saying is that's not the answer. The way to do mediumship is to follow a structured process when we focus on what does matter. So hopefully that makes sense. I'll get off my high horse again. Thank you for the clarity. You're welcome. Thanks for explaining altered states. You're welcome. Thank you so much for all your help without the fluff. Absolutely. Well, we seem to have come to the end of the questions. So I think that's probably a good place to park it up. If you've enjoyed it, remember, hit the like button. If you're watching this on the replay and you've enjoyed it, hit the like button. If you want to donate to the channel, you're more than welcome using the PayPal donation. That's in the comments or the description. You can, again, use the super thanks. That appears on all my videos if you want to donate to the channel. But do check out my teachings. That's the best way to donate to help the channel. Check out my videos, my audios, my study program, my courses. Check out all of those. If there's anything there that takes your fancy, have a go at it, check it out. And you can have more of me in your home, in your life. If you buy my products, you can listen to me for hours. What a pleasant thought. So thank you for coming, everybody. Thanks for being a part of it tonight. It's much appreciated. So take care, and I shall see you all again in the next one. Bye for now.